Hello everyone. I received a question from a correctional officer who is presently active and working in corrections, and they asked to remain anonymous. Their question was, what would you do in the scenario of having a rogue sergeant turning on and yelling at staff violently and physically attacking? End quote. Now that's the question, and we will talk about that, and we will talk about it from all angles, because we have to know when we make an allegation like this that it is true, and we have to be very careful when we make allegations like this. This is an allegation against a sergeant, and it has happened. It's a great question. It has happened. Unfortunately, it can happen again in the future, and probably will, so we need to address it. Hi, I'm Gary York, True Prison Stories. Please subscribe if you like this video. Now, let's just start with yelling. Can a supervisor legally yell at you? Yes. Your supervisor can yell at you. So, what type of yelling? It all depends on what the yelling and comments are geared toward. For example, what in the heck is wrong with you? I told you to get that job done. It's not done. We have a deadline. We have to get it done. Maybe their voice is raised. Remember, supervisors are human, just like you and me. They have pressure on them to get a job done. You have pressure on you to get a job done. So they can yell sometimes. And in cases like this, when they're yelling to tell you to get on the ball, and let me just say it plain and simple, I'm kind of an old school military in person, get your ass in gear. Get up off your ass and let's get this job done. Okay, don't get butt hurt over things like that, okay? Now, I don't know all the circumstances. I was given the question and I was told, don't tell me any circumstances, just let me address the question from all angles, and maybe some of our viewers will also give us some input that can help this officer as well. So don't get butt hurt over yelling. Supervisors can yell. Now, what happens when violent or physical acts or disruptive behavior from a supervisor become intimidation, harassment, threats of physical violence? Angry or abusive supervisors can make our work environment horrible. But I did want to start out at the beginning. If you're very sensitive, you may not have a case, okay? We'll get on that shortly, because I'm going to talk about when is it time to go to human resources. You don't want to go there with just, it hurt my feelings. That's a no-go. Won't work. Won't help you. Get back and do your job. But what if a supervisor is violating the protected class? They become harassing you. They become violent in the workplace. Well, what is a protected class? Well, you, the employee, are protected under many of the Equal Employment Opportunity Acts. Okay, every agency has policies and procedures on the Equal Employment Opportunity Act. Please know your agency's policies and procedures before you jump the gun. Okay. But if a supervisor is yelling racial slurs at you, that one can be reported, of course, to Human Resources. Sexual orientation, sexual remarks, that's definitely sexual harassment. Race, we just talked about that. Religion, they always say has no place in the workplace. Don't start downing another person's religion, especially if you're in a supervisory position, and start downing someone's religion. These are just some of the things. I worked civil rights investigations for about 5 years out of my 12 years on the side as a prison inspector in Florida. We had to go to Tallahassee Central Office. We had to go through a course of civil rights. We had to be in touch with the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity folks. We had to be in touch with our civil rights attorneys at all times when we were assigned a case to go out and do these things. So the question is very legitimate. They happen. That's why we have to go and investigate them within the agency. So, types of workplace harassment. Is your supervisor being discriminatory against you? Personal attacks against you? Physical, we'll get to that. What about retaliation? And what about just plain right putting you down? Verbal statements putting you down, okay? Those are all things that you're protected from. But human resources is not going to protect you if your supervisor is yelling at you about getting the job done and why we need to get the job done. Okay, that's something that you're just going to have to suck it up and get the job done. That's what you're there for. And your supervisor's probably trying to send you a very subtle hint if the voice is being raised that you're not doing your job and you need to get on the ball. So you have to remove these things. Yes, your supervisor can legally yell at you in certain cases, and in some cases they can't. You need to study your agency's policies and procedures on this. Remember, if you are being harassed under any of the things that I mentioned, and there's more, you're just going to have to go survey a lot of these other things on yourself, or we could be here all day. Remember, these kind of classes take a week to 2 weeks sometimes in training for people to go out and be able to understand what's going on. So you need to do some research on your own. Remember, if you do go to human resources, they're going to want solid evidence. Human resources will not want to hear, well, it really shook me up. It really upset me. Well, when did this happen? Oh, it happened in the early spring. I think it happened again in the summer. He or she is just mean. No, that's not going to work. Times, dates, locations, emails if you have them, witnesses if you have them. Those are the things you will need. And I want to tell you one thing. May shock some of you, but it should not raise eyebrows to people who have been in the system for a while. Human resources is not always going to be on your side. Truth hurts. They will investigate. They will do what they're supposed to do, but it may not turn out the way you want it. That's why you have to know when you make a complaint that you have a legitimate complaint against your supervisor. Okay? Now, those are some of the things I want to talk about in that area. Now, we want to talk about the agency must have training in this area. I hope that the agency is training all their supervisors in this area. And I hope the agency does give you some kind of annual training as a correctional officer or a prison staff employee in this area as well. The agency should have a zero tolerance policy against workplace violence. If they don't, something is wrong. Okay? All employees should be protected against workplace violence. Large agencies, and we know in corrections, in the state facilities, detention, in the jails, it's a huge agency. All large agencies should have a threat assessment task force. It's highly recommended. They go around and make sure that everyone is being treated fairly. So I hope your agency does have some of these preventative maintenance plans in place. Okay? Now, let's talk about assault and battery in the workplace. Okay? Part two of the question was, does or can a supervisor physically put their hands on me? Let's talk about that. Before I get into some legal definitions of assault and battery in the workplace, and yes, I do have my paper here. I want to make sure I say it correctly. I do want to say there are times when a supervisor can physically touch you in the corrections environment. Let's say you are about to step into danger. Maybe you're starting to walk into a cell or a dorm or into a riot area that is dangerous, and your supervisor grabs you and pulls you back. Or a coworker grabs you and pulls you back. Well, don't take that as some type of an assault or battery, and I'm sure most of you won't, but I just want to make sure that we cover all bases. That's when a supervisor could touch you. You know, tap out. Look, a use of force is going on. Your own coworkers can tap you out on the shoulder, and if you don't tap out, they can grab you and pull you back. That's saving you from going too far. You know, when we're in a use of force and we're defending ourselves against inmate attacks, we're fighting for our lives. And we're not always, you know, thinking clear. And that's what we need a lot of people to understand, too, when they do investigations. I know that it can go further, but that's a whole other topic. But we need to understand that we need to help each other. And a supervisor may grab you and tap you out and pull you out. Those kind of things, physical touches by a supervisor, are different. Okay, but what type of physical touching is not warranted? Well, unwanted touches. You know, the supervisor likes to touch your shoulder when they talk to you, especially if it's opposite sex. Really, I'm one of these type of people, you know, talk to me. Don't touch me, though. I don't need your hand on my shoulder. You know, I'm kind of like looking like, okay, this is sweet, but please get your hand off my shoulder. I just don't like that. And some people don't care, and some people do. So don't run off to human resources immediately. Hey, supervisor had his hand on my shoulder while he's talking to me. I think it was a sexual advance or something's wrong. Tell the supervisor, folks. Remember, don't fan the flames. Don't get angry. Don't run off and tell human resources there's a problem. Go to the supervisor first. Say, hey, there's a problem here that I want to talk to you about. Now, if the supervisor starts yelling and cussing and ranting and raving, saying, get the hell out of my office and I don't want to hear this shit, well, you tried to go to the supervisor first. We had a case in HCI just left where several officers went to not only the sergeant where an incident was occurring, but they went to the lieutenant and they were brushed off by both. And that kind of leaves the employees in a spot. What to do next? Do I go across the street? Do I go to human resources? Well, I'm going to give you a little tip on that one. Don't go by yourself. If there's several people that have witnessed this and you all know what's happening, go together. Don't ask one person to go across the street alone and speak for 12 others, because that one person is putting themselves in the limelight, not in danger. They shouldn't be in danger. There should be no retaliation. Retaliation is another one, by the way, on the list of protection for you. But all 12 or 13 officers should go together. If it's that serious and that many officers have a problem, then all of you should go together, okay? So, now, the question said violent physical attacks and violent yelling. So, if there's a violent physical attack, let's tell you about assault and battery in the workplace. Assault and battery sometimes happen in the workplace when there are fights between employees. We've seen that happen. Good old parking lot fights, right? There's several ways to look at that, but you should take it out of the parking lot. Come on, get it off the property. Okay, enough said there. Should not be on this property at all. And, I probably shouldn't have thrown that last thing in there, but never, ever fight on county, state property, or whatever, and I'll leave it at that. Assault and battery are two separate claims that employees can bring up against their employer. Okay, assault. The legal definition of assault differs from how the word is normally used in everyday language. According to the legal definition, assault occurs when a person demonstrates the intent to hurt you and you believe that you will be hurt, but there is no actual contact or physical injury. For example, an assault occurs if your co-worker raises his or her hand in a forceful manner toward you and you reasonably believe you are about to be hit. Okay, they haven't hit you, but you believe you're about to be hit. They've raised their hand at you. They've made a fist at you. They've raised their hand like they're going to slap you, okay? That's assault. Battery. Battery, unlike assault, requires the actual use of force. It occurs when a person intentionally and harmfully touches you without your consent. A person acts intentionally if their action was on purpose. Regardless of whether they actually intended to harm you with their action. So, for example, if your manager purposely slaps you, the manager has committed a battery, even if he or she did not intend to actually injure you. Okay? Now, there's a lot of defense claims on both sides of that, but listen, did you know that that is something that human resources normally cannot handle? I mean, yes, they could have you all sit down and iron it out. That is your choice also. You could sit down and iron it out and elect not to place criminal charges on the supervisor. You know, when we've had two inmates fight each other in the county jail, we separate them, we write a report, and we take each one of them a form that says, do you wish to press charges? And in lots of cases, both inmates sign a waiver saying they wish not to press any charges, and it's over. Same thing can go here. Now, that's up to you, folks. That is something I cannot tell you what to do. You will be in the situation. You will be the one who was struck. You will be the one who knows whether this supervisor just lost it once or if this is a regular routine for them. You're the one that has to go with it. But if you think it needs to be done, then you have the right to have the supervisor arrested, okay, for battery. So, I'm not going to give you advice on whether to do that or whether not to do that, because I think every scenario is different. I mean, my God, if you have a supervisor who's been great for 5 years and one night an incident happened, do you have to call outside forces to come and arrest the supervisor, or do you think you could all sit down and work it out? Or is this just a violent and aggressive supervisor and everybody knew the day was coming when they would finally explode? Okay? So, I took this question and I didn't say what to do, what not to do, but I tried to go around with all the angles that could occur, give a little advice. I mean, this is a week-long course we could go through on this. So hope the agencies are giving you your policies and procedures on this, or having you read them and sign that you read them. And I know a lot of you say they make us sign so they can get us later on. They'll say, see, you signed, you knew. Well, listen, folks, it's your responsibility to read these things. Read your policies and procedures on all these things. I think it was a great question, and I was interested to give it a shot at answering it. And I hope I at least got your thoughts going, and anyone in this situation. And this video alone will not give you every answer you need. You're going to have to go out and seek some knowledge on your own. But remember, human resources is there to bounce things off of. They can also tell you or advise you things. Now, there are also programs within your agency. You know, after you've approached the supervisor, if they're still violent and angry and hateful, you don't have to go to human resources. You could go to the next one up, as a lot of folks that did in the agency I came from. They went to the lieutenant, but he brushed it off. So then what do? You know, bad situation supervisors, don't brush off your employees. If they come to you with a situation, go and take care of it. If the lieutenant would have taken care of a situation with a sergeant that we were dealing with, people would not have had to gone across the street. You know, so we need everybody to kind of work together in this thing. But don't flame the fire. If a supervisor hits you, I know that we come from a paramilitary. Many of us were in the military and in corrections. We are trained to defend ourselves. We're trained for self-defense. We're trained to keep people from harming us. So if one of your co-workers or supervisors strikes you, I know, first instinct is to jump, to protect yourself. Don't. If you can just get out of there, let's take care of it with paperwork or going up the chain of command or something. Don't flame the fire. I've said that several times. Thank you very much for watching Gary York True Prison Stories.